All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and tackle something that, honestly, almost all of us find incredibly stressful. You know the feeling. When someone you're romantically interested in just goes completely quiet. We've literally all been there. The texts slow down, the calls stop, and suddenly you're just staring at an empty screen. Well, today, we're going to use some absolutely fascinating insights from human psychology to completely flip how you understand what that silence actually means.
So why do we automatically assume that silence means it's over? I want to start right here because it hits at the very core of our anxiety when we're left unread. As humans, we desperately want visual proof, right? We kind of trick ourselves into thinking people only care when we can literally see them making an obvious effort, texting all the time, talking constantly. So the second that visual proof disappears, boom, panic sets in.
It is so incredibly easy to fall into a trap here. The common assumption is, hey, no text means she just forgot about me. But the actual psychological reality, it's that silence means thoughts are actually growing in that empty space. The truth is, silence is very rarely just empty. In fact, some of the loudest thoughts happen when things are completely quiet. All right, moving into section 1, the myth of silence. What you see versus what is actually real. Here's a foundational concept we really have to wrap our heads around. Feelings do not work like a light switch. Someone can't just flip a switch and turn off their emotions just because they stopped typing messages to you. Feelings don't follow simple logic, and they definitely don't just vanish into thin air just because someone decides they should be gone. When the communication stops, we tend to jump straight to the absolute worst-case surface-level assumptions. No texts, no calls, no obvious effort. Our brain immediately screams, "Oh, she must be with someone else." We genuinely believe that if we can't see the care, it must have just evaporated. But assuming those outward signs tell the whole story, that's a massive underestimation of how the human mind actually processes connection. Which brings us to section 2, inside her quiet mind, the hidden emotional battle. You see, a woman who is being quiet isn't necessarily just having an easy-breezy time. Think about this incredibly exhausting sequence. First, she opens your chat, but just stares at it. Then, she types out this long, heartfelt message, only to delete every single word. And finally, she actively talks herself out of even asking how your day is going. That silence you're getting, it's often hiding a massive, continuous conversation happening entirely inside her head. So, going quiet is actually frequently a defense mechanism. She might be trying to heal from a hurt, feeling scared or confused, or just protecting her heart from rejection. Because let's be real, being vulnerable is terrifying. Sometimes she's simply waiting to see if you care enough to speak first. It's this intense internal battle between what her heart wants and what her mind is telling her is safe. And honestly, here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. By pulling back and allowing that silence, you actually trigger her brain to search for missing information. Her mind starts looping these specific questions like, what's he doing right now? Or has he found someone else? Human brains desperately crave certainty. We want to know how the story ends. So when those answers aren't provided, the mind just gets stuck on a loop, which actually makes you incredibly difficult to forget. Let's move to section 3, the power of absence. Why chasing kills curiosity. Look, when you're always there, constantly chasing, and always ready to talk, you leave literally zero mystery. Your presence becomes completely predictable and, frankly, a bit invisible. But giving space, that shifts the dynamic entirely. When you stop forcing attention and just let it breathe, that sudden empty space allows her thoughts about you to actually take root and expand. And curiosity is exactly what makes people invest their heart into something. We usually just assume silence is empty air. But psychologically speaking, silence is not a vacuum where nothing lives. It's actually a highly active space where everything that isn't being said starts to grow. Feelings that are tucked away behind a calm exterior often get so much stronger precisely because they're being processed in private. So why does this happen? Well, it's because unanswered questions take up way more room in our heads than things we already know for sure. If she knows exactly what you're doing, she really doesn't have to think about you. The unknown is the exact thing that makes your presence expand to fill that mental gap. All right, section 4. Emotional memory never fades. How feelings stick around. Just think about how a typical day unfolds when there's silence between you two. In the morning, maybe a certain smell in the air triggers a memory. By the afternoon, she's suddenly remembering a small shared joke you made weeks ago. And by the evening,
the past suddenly feels like it's happening right now. Emotional memory doesn't wait around for a convenient time, and it definitely doesn't ask for permission. It just loops continuously throughout the day, bringing you right back into her mental world without any warning. And the thing is, she isn't just remembering facts. She might completely forget the exact words you said, but she remembers how you made her feel when she was near you. She remembers if you understood her without her having to explain everything. She remembers feeling safe in a messy world, and she remembers the tiny details that literally nobody else noticed. The emotional mark you left completely bypasses logic, and that's exactly what sustains her connection to you during all that silence.
Which leads us to Section 5, the value of quiet strength. Building your own foundation.
We really need to redefine what confidence looks like here. Real confidence is the ability to keep living your own life without needing someone else's validation or immediate text messages just to know your value. This definition is absolutely crucial. Cultivating this quiet strength is what stops you from acting out of fear, desperation, or that overwhelming urge to chase someone just to soothe your own anxiety. A truly confident person operates totally differently. They get space without getting terrified that they're going to be forgotten. They respect themselves, they keep growing and working on their own goals, and crucially, they don't measure their self-worth by staring at their phone. When your energy shifts to this grounded state, you completely stop putting pressure on the connection. And the funny thing is, that's exactly when your absence becomes something she simply cannot ignore. Because ultimately, attraction needs the freedom to think, the freedom to look back at things, and the freedom to actually miss someone. Pressure absolutely destroys attraction. If you're always just right there in her face, she never gets the luxury of missing you. So giving her the gift of your absence, that's often the single most powerful move you can make. Finally, Section 6. Silence is not forgetting. The echo chamber of the mind. She might try to bury herself in a million distractions, but just staying busy doesn't magically wash away a feeling. It only pushes it down temporarily. And those push-down thoughts, they just pile up until they eventually float right back to the surface, often way stronger than before. Emotional bonds just don't go away simply because you command them to. Our source material makes this incredibly clear. Her outward silence is very often just a mask for a super loud, continuous internal dialogue all about you. Every single unanswered question, every remembered feeling, and every quiet thought that pops up when she's alone is undeniable proof that silence and forgetting are completely different things. So, I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. Are you actually leaving enough space for her to realize what your presence meant? Really think about that. Because if you never leave, she never has the chance to realize your true value. Give it space, trust the quiet, and let the psychology do the work.